Since the beginning of the year, there's been something going on, not just in this country, but around the world. Now, you're not going to read about this in the newspapers, you're not going to hear about it on the radio, and the major news networks aren't going to broadcast it. What is it, and what does it mean? I'll be telling you that next. All right, good people, calm down. I haven't lost my mind. I haven't joined a conspiracy theory cult or anything like that. What's going on is something called the Single Seed Challenge 2020. A few months ago, a gardener and YouTube creator by the name of Scott Head issued a challenge to all of us backyard gardeners all around the world to take one single seed and document it as we plant it, as it germinates, as it grows, as we transplant it out into our gardens, and follow it all the way through its life cycle until inevitably we harvest the fruit, the plant dies, and hopefully we cook it and eat it. And along the way we can share our thoughts and comments about the entire process of growing that particular seed and hopefully share some of its history. As soon as I saw Scott's video, I knew exactly what I wanted to grow. But there was a problem, and that problem is I live in zone 7A, and the seed that I want to grow is a pole bean. And it won't be time to start planting pole beans for about another month from now. But that doesn't mean that I can't do something right now, because pole beans require a couple of things, and one of them is poles to grow on. So for right now, I'm going to show you how I'll go about setting up poles for beans to grow on, and I've got a little bit of a unique approach to growing pole beans I'd like to share with you. So here we go. Starts out with one of these. This is a 10-foot long piece of 2-inch PVC pipe. Have a look down there. 2-inch PVC pipe. And I use 2-inch because this is big enough to fit over the end of a T-post. So I can go out to the garden, I can sink down a T-post and slide this over that T-post. And it makes a good rigid structure for the beans to climb up, but they still need something to climb up, and that's where this comes in. Now your pole beans, unlike your bush beans, like to grow fairly long on trailing vines. Six, 7, 8, even 10 feet up off the ground. Now you could let them sprawl, but it's best to have some place to let them climb, and that is where the poles come in. Now your typical poles, the pole beans to be grown on, are usually a crisscross teepee. That's typically the way you'd see it, but you know me, I never do anything the easy way. I've got to be different. Let me count and see how many we've got here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 holes all the way around the end of this post. And to that, I plan on attaching some of this. This is baling twine. It'll last all season, even longer. Made out of nylon, I believe. It's good, it's strong, and it'll make a good structure for the beans to climb up. Alright, and to get this started, all I've got to do is take this piece of twine and put it on through that hole at the top of the pole. Once it's in there, we'll just tie it off with a very, very simple knot. And that'll hold it on there good and tight. Now, I've tried this before with some mixed success, and the reason it was mixed success is because when I was attaching this line onto the pole, they got tangled up, and by the time I had the pole set up and the stakes put down in the ground, they were all twisted around each other, and it was just a mess. But I've come up with a solution that'll prevent that from happening this year. This year I'm going to tape these off before I put the pole up, and that way these should avoid getting tangled. Alright, now I'd like to let you have a look at what's going on here. All around, about 2 or 3 feet off the ground, each one of those little pieces of twine has been taped on to the pole so that they don't get tangled up near the top. Down here, I can get them unraveled pretty easily. Alright, let's take this out to the garden and set her up. This post I already had planted down in the ground previously, so all I got to do is just slide that pole into place. So far, so good. Using my handy straight edge, I can measure off 4 feet away from the base of this pole here to get an idea about where I want to put the next pole. Now I know that it is about 4 feet in between these 2 rows of peas that I planted not too long ago. And so right in the middle, 24 inches, will be right here. And I'm just going to take some of this mulch out, make a little hole, on down into where the paper is. That paper has already started to disintegrate down there, and looking down I can tell that all the perennial grasses and weeds that were down there have already been killed off from a lack of sunshine. So that paper barrier in the lasagna style bed is doing its job. Next up, I'm going to take a T-post and a post driver, and I apologize for the noise. After getting it started, just take a moment to make sure that we're pretty much straight up and down. Drive it in good and deep. And that will be the anchor that the next pole gets put down on, just like this. Alright, so we got 2 feet from the edge to the pole, 2 feet from the pole to the other edge, 2 feet from the pole to this edge here. The spacing on the bean plants is going to be 1.5 feet, but that string coming down to 1.5 feet would be here. The plant would be growing here. So what I want to do is move it to here, so the plant has room to grow up, grab onto that string, and climb. Just going to put that down there. And in a moment, I'll come back and attach the string to it. Let me go ahead and place the rest of these. Incidentally, because it's 24 inches, or because it's 48 inches from here to here, 24 inches is smack dab in the middle of the two. I could just use one stake at that point immediately in between these two posts. All right, now that I've got those stakes set up, let's get the strings attached. Tying these off just couldn't be any easier. And when we're done, it looks like I got a little bit of excess left. I can just trim that. I can just trim that right off. Alrighty, and there we go. I'll save that little piece of tape for later on and use on the next post, but this one is ready to go. The strings are all set. I can tighten them up as I need to. And whenever I come in and plant the beans, they'll be coming in about 6 inches away from each one of those stakes. Remember, always pick up your trash. Don't lay that trash in Oklahoma. Alright, now I've got the poles set up out there in the garden, or at least one of them. I'll set the rest of them up later. I don't want to bore you guys by doing them all at once and making you watch. But there will be 12 of those poles set up 4 foot apart for a total of 48 foot, which is the length of the rows that I'm using, with 8 strings on each one of those 12 poles, which will be a total of 96 plants. But I still haven't told you what I'm planning on growing for the single seed challenge, right? Alright, so here it is. I knew immediately, whenever Scott posted that video, what I wanted to grow. I knew exactly what I wanted to grow. It's a pole bean that I've wanted to grow for some time. I just didn't have any seeds for yet. And it has a tie to my own family history and to Oklahoma history, and of course to American history. It is what is commonly referred to as the Trail of Tears black bean, or Cherokee Trail of Tears black bean. But back in the day, whenever the Cherokee were planting it, they wouldn't have called it that. They would have just called it Tuya, the bean. Now, the name Cherokee Trail of Tears black bean was bestowed upon it by the Cherokee tribe after the forced relocation in 1838. So don't get too upset. That's what the tribe decided to call it. And for a while, they may still be doing this, but for a while they were distributing that particular bean along with other traditional crops to people that were interested in keeping the culture alive and continue to grow traditional food. Sometime back in the 1970s, a doctor of dentistry by the name of John Weich out of Hugo, Oklahoma, received some of those beans. Now, I don't know for certain whether he received them directly from his ancestors or if he received them from the Cherokee Nation seed program. But he decided that he was going to share some of those seeds with an organization called Seed Savers. And Seed Savers has been growing the Cherokee Trail of Tears black bean ever since. And I have some right here. 1 pound. Now for the challenge, we're supposed to select one single seed and follow it and document its progress from the time we select it, from the time it germinates, from the time it's planted out in the garden until ultimately the plant dies and hopefully we get to eat the produce or save some of the seed for later, which is what I plan on doing with these seeds. I thought about how I wanted to select the seed. And the thought occurred to me that once upon a time, back in 1838, there were people out in the fields tending their gardens just as we tend our gardens today. And on one fateful day, one of the boys from the village came running through the fields yelling, "The soldiers are coming. Soldiers are coming." Now they knew the soldiers were going to be coming because this particular sad moment in history was something that had been in the making for quite some time. Ever since the Indian Removal Act of 1830, they knew it was coming. But today was that day. And the soldiers arrived in the villages, and they took the people from the fields, and they took the people from the houses. They took the people wherever they found them, and they rounded them up and herded them into stockades. They weren't allowed to go back into their houses to get a change of clothing. They weren't allowed to get anything. They had to leave with what they had on them. And on that particular day, someone had some of these seeds on them. Those seeds made the march over 1,000 miles from the Smoky Mountains to northeastern Oklahoma. They survived and were planted in the ground. And these seeds are descended from those seeds. Now, just as these seeds are descended out of one of many possible seeds that could have been saved in that event, I'm going to pick my seed in the same way. One seed out of many, right there. And there it is. That's going to be the seed right there. Let me put this down. Let me show you a handful. Here's a handful. It could have been any one of these seeds. That's a really shiny looking one right there. There's a couple of really big ones. That one's kind of big, a little square. That one's shiny. They look healthy. But we got this one right here. This is the seed that I'm going to plant. When it becomes time to plant beans, this is the seed. The one seed that survived the march from the Smoky Mountains to northeast Oklahoma and wound up in my garden. Well, not exactly, but I'm trying to mimic that as closely as possible. Now this is what we're going to do. I want you to keep your eyes on that seed right there. Keep your eyes on it. Is it still in frame? I hope it's still in frame. I'm reaching over here. Alright. I've got this little plastic case. I'm going to put that right there. And that is where this seed is going to sit, right there, for about another week or two. And right around the end of March, beginning of May, is when this goes in the ground. So, keep me honest, I'm going to put this seed down where you guys can see it. It's going to stay right there. Well, alright, good people. That's my introduction to the Single Seed Challenge 2020. If you're interested in joining the challenge or following this challenge, you'll find instructions for the challenge in the links below. And you can always search the hashtag Single Seed 2020 or Single Seed Challenge 2020. I believe it's Single Seed Challenge 2020. I'll have it written down in the description below. Check it out. Follow along. There's a whole bunch of people around the world participating in the Single Seed Challenge. Check out their videos and see what they're up to. You're going to find a lot of interesting gardens and a lot of interesting people out there, like Scott Head, who introduced me to this challenge. That's all I've got for you right now. If you like this video, if you found it informative, please hit the like button. Don't forget to leave your comments down below. Bang that notification bell for future content, and I will catch you next time.